Okay, chapter 4 in the Doctrine book. This one's all about image. The authors are going to talk about what it means that we were created in the image of God. Genesis 1 verse 26 says, "Then God said, 'Let us make man in our image after our likeness.'" And this means something for us. It actually applies to our everyday lives today. It's important for us to understand what it means that we were created in the image of God so that we can rightly understand why we're here on earth. Let's warm up by looking at the 12 vital truths that the authors lay out in this chapter. Number 1, we were created by Trinity. Number 2, we were created as persons by a personal God, not by an impersonal force. Number 3, God originally made mankind without sin. Number 4, God blesses us. Number 5, unlike the animals who are made according to their own kind, we are made in the image of God. And again, this whole chapter is going to outline what that means for us in our everyday lives. Number 6, God gives commands to us because he made us as moral image bearers. We'll talk about more about that in a minute. Number 7, God made us curious adventurers and granted us permission to explore his creation through everything from a telescope to a microscope. Number 8, God created us to be creative and invited us to make culture. Number 9, God created us to be reproductive and have children. Number 10, God made us with meaningful work to do. Number 11, God created us as his image bearers, but not because he needed us in any way. He's totally self-sufficient, but he still created us in his image. And then finally, number 12, God created us to live coram Deo, which means to live before the face of God. Now, these are all general observations, general truths about how we were created by God. But specifically, we're going to talk about imaging God or mirroring God, making him known to all of creation. The authors write, "To image the real Trinitarian God of the Bible is to make him visible to the world." And they say that we're not to reflect Adam or our culture or even ourselves to the world, but the goal, our mission in life, it's important for us to understand this. God has bestowed upon us the amazing ability and the awesome responsibility to be his mirrors on the earth, to reflect his goodness and glory to all, for his glory and for our joy. Now, mirroring God's moral likeness means exercising decision-making power, having dominion over lower creation, living in social relationships with others, feeling our emotions, etc. And that's what it means that we mirror the moral likeness of God. We also mirror God's non-moral likeness by using our intellect and reason to think and being creative with the materials God has created. And also it means that we're immortal and we live spiritually even after our physical death. That's all part of what it means to mirror God's non-moral likeness. Now, why don't we end this video by talking about the attributes of God? There are two types of God's attributes. First, his unshared attributes, like his omnipresence and his omniscience, his omnipotence. These are all things that we don't share. We're not all-powerful. His immutability, his eternality. God has no beginning or end. We have a beginning. Even though we don't have an end as human beings, we have a beginning. God is eternal in both directions. He has no beginning or end. And in God's sovereignty, these are all unshared attributes of God. We don't mirror these things. But then there are these shared attributes of God. Here's just a short list of them, like his holiness and his love and his truth and righteousness and mercy and beauty. These are all things that we do mirror. These are the things that we do share in part. Now, God is perfectly truthful and perfectly righteous, and we can only mirror those things in part. But nonetheless, these are attributes of God's character that can be mirrored by us as human beings. Now, before we go on to the next video, why don't you hit pause and talk about some of these questions?